The warning light had been blinking red for 2 days now. Danny Cole sat in the pilot seat of his small cargo ship and watched the fuel gauge drop lower and lower. He was running out of time. He was running out of everything. The ship was called the Wayward Son. It was old and tired, just like Danny felt most days. He had bought it 7 years ago when he first left Earth. Back then, he was young and full of dreams. He wanted to see the stars. He wanted adventure. Now all he wanted was to go home. But home was very far away, and his ship was almost out of fuel. Danny rubbed his eyes and looked at the star map on his screen. There was only one place close enough to reach with the fuel he had left. It was a space station called. He had heard stories about. None of them were good. Was a place where criminals did business. It was a place where people sold things that should never be sold. But it had fuel. And fuel was the only thing that mattered right now. Danny set the course and leaned back in his seat. He thought about his life back on Earth. He grew up in a small town in Kansas. His mother worked at a grocery store. His father fixed cars. They were simple people living simple lives. They had warned him about leaving Earth. They said the galaxy was a dangerous place for humans. They were right. Humans were still new to space travel. Most alien species had been flying between stars for thousands of years. They saw humans as children. Some of them saw humans as food. Danny had learned to be careful. He had learned to keep his head down and do his job. He moved cargo from one place to another. He did not ask questions. He did not make trouble. But trouble always seemed to find him anyway. The Wayward Son dropped out of hyperspace near station. Danny looked through the window and saw the station floating in the darkness. It was big and ugly, made of metal plates welded together over many years. Ships of all sizes were docked around it like flies on rotten fruit. Danny guided his ship to an empty docking port. The clamps locked onto his hull with a loud clang. He was here. He checked his credit balance on his personal device. The number was small, very small. He had just enough to fill his fuel tanks, nothing more, no food, no repairs, just fuel. It would have to be enough. Danny put on his jacket and grabbed his bag. He did not carry a weapon. Weapons attracted attention, and attention was dangerous on a place like. He just wanted to buy his fuel and leave as fast as possible. The airlock opened and the smell hit him like a punch to the face. The air on was thick and dirty. It smelled like rust and sweat and fear. Danny wrinkled his nose but kept walking. He had smelled worse. The station was crowded with aliens of every shape and size. Some had scales, some had fur, some had tentacles. They pushed past each other in the narrow corridors, all of them busy with their own dark business. Nobody looked at Danny. Nobody cared about one small human. He followed the signs toward the market district. This was where everything was bought and sold on. Legal goods, illegal goods, and things that Danny did not even want to think about. He kept his eyes forward and walked fast. The fuel depot was on the other side of the market. Danny just had to walk through and get there. Simple, easy, nothing to worry about. Then he saw the cages. They were lined up along one wall of the market. Inside them were creatures of all kinds. Some were animals, some were not. Danny tried not to look. He had seen things like this before. It was horrible, but it was not his problem. He could not save everyone. He could barely save himself. But then he saw her. She was in a cage near the end of the row. She was small, maybe the size of a human child. Her skin was pale blue and her hair was white like snow. She had large eyes that were the color of purple flowers. She was sitting in the corner of her cage with her arms wrapped around her knees. Danny knew what she was. He had met a few of them during his travels. They were a peaceful species. They were known for being kind and gentle. They could feel the emotions of others. Some people said they could even heal with their touch. Other people said they tasted sweet. Danny felt sick when he saw the sign above her cage. It was written in the common language that most species used for trade. The words were simple and terrible: fresh stock, sold by weight. They were going to eat her. Danny stood there and stared. He could not move. He could not look away. The girl in the cage lifted her head and looked at him. Her purple eyes met his brown ones. He saw fear in those eyes. He saw pain. But he also saw something else. Hoping. She was hoping he would help her. Danny's heart was beating fast. He thought about his fuel. He thought about his credits. He thought about all the reasons why he should just walk away. This was not his problem. He was just a cargo runner. He was nobody. What could he possibly do? He forced himself to start walking again. He walked past the cage. He walked toward the fuel depot. Every step felt heavy. Every step felt wrong. He reached the fuel depot and stood in line. The alien in front of him was buying supplies for a long journey. Danny waited and tried not to think about those purple eyes. But he could not stop thinking about them. He thought about his mother back on Earth. She used to tell him stories when he was young, stories about heroes who did the right thing even when it was hard, even when it cost them everything. She used to say that being good was not about being comfortable. It was about being brave. Danny looked down at his credit chip. He looked at the fuel pumps. He looked back toward the market where the cages were. He thought about going home. He thought about blue skis and green grass and the faces of people who loved him. Then he thought about a little girl with purple eyes sitting in a cage, waiting to die. Danny Cole made his choice. He stepped out of the line and started walking back toward the market. He did not know what he was going to do. He did not have a plan. He did not have money or weapons or friends. But he was human, and humans had a strange habit of doing stupid things for the right reasons. The cage was still there when he got back. The girl was still inside. She looked up at him with those big purple eyes, and Danny felt something change inside his chest, something old and strong and impossible to ignore. He was going to save her. He did not know how, but he was going to try. Or he was going to die trying. Danny walked up to the cage and looked at the girl inside. She was so small, so fragile. Up close, he could see that her pale blue skin was covered in dirt and bruises. Someone had hurt her. Someone had treated her like an animal. He felt anger building in his chest. It was a feeling he had not felt in a long time. Life in space had taught him to push his feelings down. Feelings made you weak. Feelings got you killed. But right now, standing in front of this cage, Danny could not push anything down. A deep voice spoke behind him. "You like what you see, human." Danny turned around. Standing there was the biggest alien he had ever seen. The creature was at least 8 feet tall with thick green scales and yellow eyes. He had 2 small horns on his head and a mouth full of sharp teeth. He wore expensive clothes and gold rings on his clawed fingers. "I am," the alien said. "This is my merchandise. Are you interested in buying?" Danny looked at the girl in the cage, then back at, "How much?" Laughed. It was an ugly sound. "More than you can pay, little human. She is very rare, very valuable. The delegates are coming tomorrow for a feast. They have already placed an order." Danny knew about They were a powerful species that controlled many star systems. They were also known for eating other intelligent beings. It was considered normal in their culture. Legal, even. "What if I want to buy her freedom?" Danny asked. Laughed again. "Freedom? She has no freedom to buy. She is property. She is meat." He stepped closer to Danny and looked down at him with those cold, yellow eyes. "Go away, human, before I decide to add you to my inventory." Danny wanted to hit him. He wanted to hurt him. But he was not stupid, was twice his size and had at least 30 armed guards walking around the market. Danny would be dead before he could throw a single punch. So he walked away, but he did not go back to the fuel depot. Instead, he found a quiet corner of the station where nobody would bother him. He sat down on an old crate and pulled out his communication device. He had not used it to call anyone in a long time. He had tried to keep his distance from other humans. It was safer that way. But this was not a time for safety. He started making calls. The first person he called was Marsh. She was a medic who used to work for the Earth military. Now she ran a small clinic on a planet 3 star systems away. She helped people who could not afford real doctors. She was tough and smart, and she owed Danny a favor from years ago. "Danny Cole," she said when she answered. Her face appeared on his screen. She had short brown hair and tired eyes. "I thought you were dead." "Not yet," Danny said. "I need your help." He told her about the girl in the cage. He told her He told her everything. When he was done, was quiet for a long moment. "You want to fight a slaver on a lawless station with no weapons and no money," she said. "Yes. That is the thing I have ever heard." She paused. "I will be there in 6 hours." The second person Danny called was Pete Harmon. Pete was an old man who had been fixing ships in space since before Danny was born. He had gray hair and rough hands and a voice like gravel. He lived on his own ship, moving from station to station, taking whatever work he could find. "A rescue mission," Pete said when Danny explained. "On station, you are out of your mind, son." "Probably," Danny admitted. Pete was quiet for a moment, then he grinned. "Well, it has been too long since I did something crazy. Count me in." The third call went to Nora. She was young, only 22, but she was the best hacker Danny had ever met. She had gotten in trouble with some big corporations back on Earth for exposing their secrets. Now she lived on the run, always moving, always hiding. "You want me to hack into station security systems?" Nora asked. Her face on the screen looked excited rather than scared. "That sounds like fun. Give me a few hours to get there." The last call was the hardest. Danny sat for a long time before he made it. He was calling someone he had not spoken to in 3 years, someone he was not sure would even answer. But the call connected, and a face appeared on the screen. It was a man about Danny's age with dark skin and cold eyes. There was a scar on his left cheek that had not been there the last time Danny saw him. "Ben," Danny said. "Danny," Ben Torres replied. His voice was flat, empty. Ben had been a Marine in the Earth military. He was one of the best soldiers humanity had ever produced. Then something happened during a mission, something bad. Ben was sent to prison for 10 years. He escaped after 2. Now he was one of the most wanted men in this part of the galaxy. "I need help," Danny said. "I figured." Ben did not smile. "What is the job?" Danny told him. When he was done, Ben was quiet for a long time. "You want to save an alien girl from being eaten," Ben finally said. "Yes." "And you expect to die doing it?" "Probably." Ben nodded slowly. "Good, I was getting bored anyway. I will see you on." Danny put down his communication device and took a deep breath. He had a team now. 4 humans and himself. 5 people against an army of slavers on a station full of criminals. The odds were terrible. The plan was barely a plan at all. Any smart person would walk away right now and never look back. But humans were not always smart. They were stubborn. They were emotional. They cared about things they had no reason to care about. It was their greatest weakness. It was also their greatest strength. Danny stood up and started walking back toward the market. He needed to learn more about its operation. He needed to find weaknesses. He needed to turn 5 humans into an army. Back in her cage, the girl named Lyra watched the market around her. She had felt something strange a little while ago. A human had stopped and looked at her. Most beings walked past without seeing her at all. But this human had stopped. He had looked into her eyes, and she had felt something coming from him. It was not pity, it was not curiosity, it was something stronger, something warmer. It was hope. Lyra did not understand humans. Nobody in the galaxy really did. They were strange creatures who did strange things. They took risks that made no sense. They fought battles they could not win. But for the first time since she was captured, Lyra felt a tiny spark of hope in her chest. Maybe this human would come back. Maybe he would help her. Or maybe she was just dreaming. But sometimes dreams were all you had left. They came one by one over the next 12 hours. Marsh arrived first. She docked her small medical ship on the far side of the station where nobody would notice. She walked through the corridors with a bag over her shoulder. Inside the bag were medical supplies, bandages, and a plasma pistol she had taken from a military base years ago. She found Danny in a small room he had rented near the docking area. It was dirty and cold, but it was private. That was all that mattered. "You look terrible," said when she saw him. "Thanks," Danny replied. "You look tired." "I am always tired. That is what happens when you spend your life fixing broken people." She put down her bag and looked around the room. "So, what is the plan?" "We are still working on that." Pete Harmon arrived 2 hours later. His ship was even older than Danny's. It was held together with tape and hope, but Pete knew how to keep things running. He could fix anything with enough time and enough spare parts. He walked into the room and nodded at Danny, and then he sat down in the corner and started eating a sandwich he had brought with him. "I brought some equipment," Pete said between bites. "Explosives, jamming devices, a few other things that might be useful." "Where did you get explosives?" asked. Pete shrugged. "I know people." Nora was the third to arrive. She was small and thin with short black hair and bright eyes that never stopped moving. She carried a computer bag and looked excited rather than scared. "This place is amazing," she said as she entered the room. "The security systems are ancient. I can break into them in my sleep." "Good," Danny said, "because that is exactly what we need you to do." "What do you need?" "Cameras, communications, door locks." "Everything. When we make our move, I want to control this entire station." Nora grinned. "That sounds like fun." Ben Torres was the last to arrive. He did not dock a ship. Nobody knew how he got onto the station. He simply appeared at the door of the room like a ghost. He was tall and muscular with dark skin and eyes that had seen too much pain. He moved like a predator, smooth and silent. He carried no bag and no visible weapons. He did not need them. "Ben," Danny said. "Danny," Ben looked around the room at the others. "This is your team." "This is my team." Ben nodded slowly. "We are going to die." "Probably," said, "but we are here anyway." For the first time, something that might have been a smile crossed Ben's face. That sounds about right for humans. They spent the next several hours planning. Danny had spent the day watching the operation. He had counted the guards. He had studied their routines. He had found the weak points. "The feast is tomorrow night," Danny explained. "The delegates are coming at sunset. That is when they will take Lyra from her cage and—" He did not finish the sentence. He did not need to. "So we need to get her out before sunset," said. "Yes, but has 30 guards. They are well armed and well trained. If we attack during the day, they will kill us before we get close to the cage." "So we attack at night," Ben said, "before the feast, when they are not expecting trouble." Pete nodded. "I can rig some distractions, explosions in different parts of the station. It will pull the guards away from the market." "And I can kill the lights," Nora added. "If I take down the power grid in the market district, they will be blind. They will not see us coming." "What about the ships in orbit?" asked. "If they see trouble on the station, they will send soldiers down to help." "I can jam their communications," Nora said. "They will not know anything is wrong until we are already gone." Danny looked at his team. 4 humans who had come across the galaxy to help him save a stranger. They had nothing to gain from this. They were risking their lives for a girl they had never met. "Why are you all here?" Danny asked. "Really, why did you come?" They were quiet for a moment, then spoke. "Because somebody has to," she said. "The galaxy is full of beings who see something wrong and walk away. They tell themselves it is not their problem. They tell themselves they cannot make a difference. And maybe they are right. Maybe one person cannot change the galaxy. She looked at Danny with tired but determined eyes. But that little girl in the cage does not need us to change the galaxy. She just needs us to change her life. And I think we can do that. Pete nodded. I have lived a long time. I have seen a lot of evil in this galaxy. Most of it I could not stop. But this time maybe I can. That is enough reason for me. Nora smiled. I spent my whole life fighting against people who hurt others, corporations, governments, criminals. It does not matter who they are. If they hurt innocent people, I want to stop them. This is just one more fight. Ben was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was quiet. I have done bad things in my life, things I cannot take back, things that keep me awake at night. He looked at his hands. Maybe this will not fix anything. Maybe saving one girl does not make up for all the people I could not save. But I have to try. Because if I stop trying, then what is the point of being alive? Danny felt something warm in his chest. He had spent years alone in space, thinking that nobody cared about anything anymore. He had started to believe that the galaxy had broken something inside humans, that they had learned to be cold and empty like all the other species. But he was wrong. Humans still cared, they still hoped, they still fought for things that mattered. Tomorrow night, Danny said, we save that girl or we die trying. 4 voices answered him as one. Tomorrow night. Outside the room, the station continued its dark business. Criminals made deals. Slaves were sold. Evil wore 100 different faces. But in one small room, 5 humans were making plans. And the galaxy had no idea what was coming. The sun was setting on station. In 3 hours, the delegates would arrive for their feast. In 3 hours, a little girl named Lyra would be killed and eaten. Danny Cole and his team had other plans. Is everyone in position? Danny spoke quietly into his communication device. Ready, Pete answered from somewhere near the power station. Ready, Nora replied from her hiding spot near the security center. Ready, confirmed from the medical bay she had set up in Danny's ship. Ready, Ben said from the shadows near his compound. Danny took a deep breath. Then let's do this. Exactly at midnight, the first explosion rocked the station. It was on the far side of near the docking bays. Fire and smoke filled the corridors. Alarms started screaming. Guards looked at each other in confusion. 10 of them ran toward the explosion, leaving fewer guards to watch the market. 30 seconds later, the second explosion hit. This one was near the water treatment facility. More guards ran to help. Then Nora worked her magic. Every light in the market district died at once. The darkness was complete. Aliens screamed and pushed each other, trying to find their way in the black. But Danny and Ben were not blind. They had night vision goggles that Pete had given them. The world glowed green in front of their eyes. They could see everything. Move, Ben said. They ran through the market like ghosts. Aliens stumbled past them, unable to see. Guards shouted orders that nobody could follow. It was chaos. Beautiful, perfect chaos. And then the music started. Pete had hacked into the station's announcement system. Suddenly, every speaker on was playing old Earth music at maximum volume. The song was loud and fast, with guitars and drums and a man singing about war. "What is that noise?" screamed from inside his compound. His remaining guards had no answer. They had never heard human music before. It sounded like madness to them. Danny and Ben reached the compound entrance. 2 guards stood there, weapons raised, looking around blindly in the dark. Ben moved faster than Danny could follow. One guard fell, then the other. They never even saw what hit them. "Door is open," Ben said. They went inside. His compound was a maze of corridors and rooms. Danny had studied the layout during the day, but it was different in the dark. They moved carefully, taking down guards one by one. Ben was terrifying to watch. He moved like water flowing around his enemies, striking before they could react. Danny was not as skilled, but he did his part. He had a stun weapon that Nora had given him. It was not deadly, but it dropped enemies fast. "Left corridor," Danny whispered. "The cages are through there." They turned the corner and found themselves facing the room where the slaves were kept. 10 cages were lined up against the wall. Most of them held aliens who were too scared to move. But at the far end, Danny saw her. Lyra. She was standing at the front of her cage, hands gripping the bars. Her purple eyes were wide with fear and hope. "We are here to help," Danny said. "We are going to get you out." But before he could reach the cage, the lights came back on. Stood in the doorway behind them. He was holding a massive plasma cannon that could have cut through a ship's hull. Behind him were 10 of his best guards. "Stupid humans," growled. "Did you really think you could steal from me?" Danny's heart sank. The plan had been going so well, but they had not been fast enough, had figured it out. "Walk away," Danny said. His voice was calm even though his heart was racing. "Just let us take the girl and leave." Laughed. "Why would I do that?" "Because if you fight us, you might win, but you will lose guards. You will lose money. You will have to explain to the why their feast was ruined. Is one girl worth all that trouble?" Hesitated. For just a moment, his yellow eyes showed doubt. That moment was all Ben needed. He moved so fast that Danny barely saw it happen. 1 second, Ben was standing next to him. The next, he was in the middle of guards, breaking bones and taking weapons. Everything happened at once. Guards fired their weapons. Plasma bolts flew through the air. Danny dove behind a cage for cover. He felt heat singe his arm, but he did not stop moving. Ben was fighting 3 guards at once. Danny saw him take a hit to the shoulder, but he kept fighting. He grabbed one guard and threw him into another. He kicked a third in the chest so hard that the alien flew across the room. Danny saw his chance. He ran toward Lyra's cage while the guards were distracted. The lock was electronic. Danny had a hacking device that Nora had given him. He pressed it against the lock and prayed. The lock clicked open. "Come on." Danny grabbed Lyra's hand and pulled her out of the cage. She was light, so light. He could feel her trembling as he held her hand. But she did not cry, she did not scream, she just held on and ran. "Ben, we have her, move." Ben threw one last guard to the ground and started running. Raised his plasma cannon and fired, but the shot went wide. It hit the wall and exploded in a shower of sparks. They ran through the corridors of the compound. Guards chased them, but Pete's explosions were still causing chaos throughout the station. Emergency doors were closing. Fire suppression systems were spraying foam everywhere. "This way," Danny pulled Lyra toward the exit. He could see the market ahead. It was still dark, still filled with confused aliens. A guard appeared in front of them. Ben did not even slow down. He hit the guard like a truck and kept running. They burst out of the compound and into the market. Danny's communication device crackled. "The ship is ready," his voice said. "Docking Bay 7, move." They ran through the darkness. Lyra's hand was still gripping Danny's. She was keeping up with him despite her small size. She was stronger than she looked. Behind them was screaming orders. His guards were regrouping. They would be coming soon. But Docking Bay 7 was close, so close. Danny saw the wayward sun ahead. The airlock was open, was standing there with her plasma pistol raised, covering their escape. "Get in," she shouted. Danny pushed Lyra toward the ship. Ben was right behind them, bleeding from several wounds but still moving. They dove through the airlock, came in last, firing one final shot at the guards who were chasing them. The airlock slammed shut. "Pete," Danny screamed, "get us out of here." The ship shook as Pete pushed the engines to full power. They tore away from the station, leaving behind them. But they were not safe yet. 3 warships were waiting in orbit, and they had just noticed that something was very wrong. The wayward sun screamed through space with 3 warships behind it. Alarms were ringing everywhere. Red lights flashed on every console. The old ship was shaking so hard that Danny thought it might fall apart. "They are gaining on us," Nora shouted from the navigation station. "I know," Pete yelled back. His hands were flying over the engine controls. "I am giving her everything she has." Danny looked out the window. The ships were huge and fast. They were designed for war. The wayward sun was designed for carrying cargo. This should not even be a chase. It should be an execution. But Pete had done something to the engines, something that probably broke several laws of physics. The little cargo ship was moving faster than it had any right to move. "Weapons are locking on us," Nora said. Her voice was calm, but Danny could see her hands shaking. "Jam them," Danny ordered. "I am trying. Their systems are more advanced than I expected." Was in the back of the ship, treating Ben's wounds. He had taken several hits during the fight. Normal humans would have passed out from the pain, but Ben just sat there quietly while worked. Lyra was sitting in the corner of the cockpit. She had not said a word since they escaped. Her purple eyes were watching everything, watching everyone. A plasma blast hit the ship's shields. The whole vessel shook. Warning lights that had been yellow turned red. "Shields at 40%, Nora reported. "Another hit like that and we are done." Danny grabbed the communication device. "Pete, we need more speed." "There is no more speed. The engines are already past their limits. If I push them any harder, they will explode." Another blast hit the shields. The lights flickered. Something in the back of the ship made a horrible grinding noise. "Shields at 15%. Danny closed his eyes. They had come so far. They had rescued Lyra. They had beaten. They had done the impossible, and now they were going to die anyway. "Danny," it was Lyra's voice, small and soft and scared. He opened his eyes and looked at her. "I can feel them," she said. "Though they are angry, they want to hurt us." "I know," Danny said. "I am sorry we tried so hard." Lyra stood up. Her small body was trembling, but her purple eyes were clear and focused. "My people can feel emotions," she said, "but we can also share them. We can send our feelings into others." Danny did not understand. "What do you mean?" "I can feel all of you, the humans. You are scared, but you are also strong. You are also brave. I have never felt anything like it before." She took a deep breath. "Maybe I can share that strength with the ship." Before Danny could say anything, Lyra walked to the engine console. She placed her small blue hands on the metal surface. She closed her eyes. And then she began to glow. It started soft, just a faint purple light around her fingers. But it grew stronger and brighter until the whole cockpit was filled with violet light. The ship stopped shaking. The engines, which had been screaming with strain, suddenly went quiet. But they did not slow down. They sped up. "What is happening?" Pete stared at his controls in disbelief. "The engines are running at 200% capacity. That is impossible. They should be melting." But they were not melting. They were working perfectly, better than perfectly. The wayward sun shot forward like a bullet from a gun. The warships fell behind, unable to keep up. "The hyperspace drive is ready," Nora said. Her voice was full of wonder. "All systems are functioning at maximum efficiency. I do not know how, but everything is working." Danny looked at Lyra. Her eyes were still closed. Her body was still glowing. She was pouring everything she had into the ship. "Jump to hyperspace," Danny ordered. "Now." Pete hit the controls. The stars stretched into lines of light, and then they were gone. The warships fired one last time, but their shots hit empty space. The wayward sun had vanished. They were safe. Lyra collapsed the moment they entered hyperspace. Danny caught her before she hit the floor. She was cold and weak, but she was breathing. She was alive. "Is she okay?" rushed over from the back of the ship. I think so, Danny said. I think she just used all her energy. Took Lyra from Danny's arms and carried her to the medical bay. The little girl looked so small and fragile, but she had just saved all their lives. Danny walked to the cockpit window and looked out at the swirling colors of hyperspace. They had done it. Against all odds, they had actually done it. Pete came up beside him. The old mechanic was smiling. Hell of a day, Pete said. Hell of a day, Danny agreed. 3 hours later, Lyra woke up. She was lying on a bed in the medical bay, was sitting beside her, watching over her. When Lyra opened her eyes, smiled. Welcome back, said. You scared us. Lyra looked around. Did we escape? We did, thanks to you. Lyra sat up slowly. Her body was still weak, but her purple eyes were bright. Where are we going? Danny walked into the medical bay. He had been standing outside, waiting for her to wake up. We are going to a safe place, Danny said. A human colony where you can stay until we figure out what to do next. You will be protected there, I promise. Lyra looked at him for a long moment. Then she asked the question that had been on her mind since he first stopped at her cage. Why did you save me? You did not know me. You did not owe me anything. You gave up your fuel. You almost died. Why? Danny sat down on the edge of the bed. He thought about the question. It was a good question. Other species asked it all the time. They never understood the answer. Humans have a strange problem, Danny said slowly. We care about things we should not care about. We fight for people we do not know. We risk everything for causes that are not our own. He looked at Lyra with kind eyes. My grandmother used to tell me that being good is not about what is easy. It is about what is right. When I saw you in that cage, I had two choices. I could save myself or I could save you. The smart choice was to walk away. He smiled softly. But the right choice was to stay, and I guess humans are not very smart. Lyra was quiet for a moment. Then she did something that surprised everyone on the ship. She laughed. It was a small sound, soft and musical, but it filled the ship with warmth. Humans are very strange, Lyra said. Yes, Danny agreed, we are. Ben appeared in the doorway. His wounds were bandaged and he looked tired, but there was something in his eyes that had not been there before. The colony is 2 days away, Ben said. After that, what happens? Danny looked at his team. Pete, Nora, Ben. They had come together for one mission. They had saved one life. But the galaxy was full of people who needed saving. I do not know, Danny admitted, but I think there is more work to do. Smiled. I was hoping you would say that. Pete laughed. Count me in. Nora nodded eagerly. Me too. Ben looked at Danny for a long moment, then he nodded once. Same. Danny turned back to Lyra. The little girl was watching them with those big purple eyes. What do you think? Danny asked her. Want to stick with us for a while? Lyra smiled. It was the first real smile Danny had seen from her. Yes, she said. I think I would like that very much. And so the wayward sun flew on through the stars, carrying 6 souls who had found something rare in the darkness of space. They had found each other. They had found hope. They had found a reason to keep fighting. And the galaxy, for the first time in a long time, had something to fear. Humanity was coming.